In this unit, we're going to start working with quadratic functions, and you may remember quadratic functions as one of the parent functions that we learned back in our original unit. A quadratic function is a function that has its largest exponent as a 2. So the largest exponent being a 2, it's squared. Now, if you reviewed your factoring notes that we made available to you, we should know that this quadratic function is a type of polynomial function, and there's a couple major parts that we need to work with. And so you can see I've just rewritten the quadratic function here in function notation. Now, in this particular case, we have the leading coefficient, which is the a, and of course the a is going to be very important in a quadratic function. And the other thing is the 2 is what we call the degree. And so if you remember, the degree is always the highest exponent in the polynomial function, and if we write a polynomial function in standard form, the degree, highest exponent value, or the degree, should start and it should decrease until we get to a constant value. Now, so you can see that this polynomial is written in standard form, and since it's a quadratic, this is our standard form for our quadratic. So you should become very familiar with ax squared plus bx plus c. Now, these first couple of lessons we're going to be focusing on graphing quadratic functions, and later lessons we'll be working on solving quadratic functions. Now, the degree is going to become extremely important throughout this unit. The degree of 2 identifies the type as a quadratic. It also lets us know how many solutions there are, how many zeros there are, or how many roots there are, and we'll be talking about all those terms as we move through the particular unit. Now, let's just review a handful of things about quadratic functions. First of all, you recall that it makes a U-shaped graph, which is a parabola. If you recall that if the a value, the leading coefficient, is positive, that parabola opens up, and if it's negative, it opens downward. This also creates a minimum or maximum height on the quadratic or on the parabola, which we call a vertex. So these are all terms that you should be familiar with. Now, lastly, we learned a little bit about symmetry in prior units, and so quadratics are symmetric, and they have a particular line that they're symmetric around, and in this case we're talking about the axis of symmetry. So the axis of symmetry is actually going to run straight down through the vertex and create symmetry on either side of the axis of symmetry. And so you can see how it reflects itself across the axis of symmetry. Now, one of your goals is going to be to identify the axis of symmetry. In this particular lesson, we're only graphing quadratics that are in standard form, and so we have here a little concept summary of information that you should become very familiar with. In this concept summary, it gives us some general information about quadratic functions and what we'll need to use to graph them. So you can see here some basic stuff is a is greater than 0, it opens up, less than 0 goes down, and various things like that. What I want you to pay particular close attention to is the x-coordinate of the vertex and the axis of symmetry. Notice that both of those formulas or expressions are the exact same thing, negative b over 2a. So if you identify the x-coordinate of the vertex, you've also identified the axis of symmetry, since the x value for the vertex is the same as the line that represents the axis of symmetry. So those are some basic information that you should know in regards to quadratics in standard form. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to keep these videos short and sweet. I'm just going to run you through a number of examples in the following videos. So what I'd like you to do is, before you start working through the remaining videos, just go ahead and work your way through the notes, the example problems, and see if you can graph the example problems, and then come back and watch the videos to see the process that I use.